To the crowd. All right, shall we get started? I think we have a quorum. Again, folks can introduce themselves if they would like in the chat, and people can see who's here. We have a great group, lots of leaders, lots of folks in talent management, lots of some new faces. We're so glad that you joined us today. And we are super excited to have our friend Spencer here sharing his knowledge and expertise on the next gen. So I am just going to pull up the presentation and get us started. Are you good with that?
Rock and roll.
Let's roll. I will say I'm having a delivery of a tropical smoothie. Pretty excited about a tropical smoothie. I should do a commercial for that. Thank you. All right, so we're Stretch Strategic Leaders. A little bit about, let's just spend a little bit of time on who we are, just give everyone a reminder for those that we don't know. And really, we're here to talk to Spencer. Really, we're here to hear Spencer talk. We are recording. This will be shared on our website. We have all of our past webinars on there. It's a great way to spend a few hours. And Spencer, we've known him for, I feel like I've known Spencer for a long time because I've been connected with people that he knows, but really we've connected with him over the last year and love his journey, love his purpose, what he does, and really helping young professionals really love what they do. And he's going to really share what they really want and how we as company leaders and people who really have a desire to understand young professionals, how we can make sure that relationship is as solid as possible. And so I want to also tell Spencer, congratulations. He just got his master's in leadership. And so he is, obviously he's always been a leader, but now he has a certificate to prove it. And he showed us his dog. We were more interested in his dog, and he's married. And we're just so glad that you're here with us. And he'll talk to you more about his company and what he's doing. We did put a little thing in the chat there up at the top, but I will say that in his organization, Work on Purpose, they have a connection to young professionals. And we're going to put one of our job postings in there. They are starting to connect young professionals to companies. So you can post a job with them. And then if they help you hire, then you will pay for some executive or some development, some education, which might be around $600, which is well worth it if you get someone to fill a position. So I'm actually going to send him we're trying to hire a strategic project management. I need help. Everybody knows I need help. I need help. So if you know anyone that loves strategy, is process minded, and wants to follow me around for a while, then you send them my way. I'm super fun. So takeaways from today when we get there are really what they want and their values. And use the chat for questions. Cindy and I will check that. Nancy will check that. We will let kind of Spencer run with it for most of it. And then we will have an interactive time that you can ask questions on your own. And then as we always start these conversations, we're glad that you're here and we're glad that you're spending an hour with us. So again, I'm Darcy. I'm the strategy person. I've been doing and facilitating and helping companies grow for about 20 years now. And I'm super excited to be working with this team of people. Cindy, you want to introduce yourself?
Yep, Cindy Weininger. And I am highly motivated to see people love getting to know themselves, working with other people, and building great teams so that people have a phenomenal opportunity to grow through partnership with their organizations. And then also on with us, we've got Nancy, who any of you all who have worked with us know Nancy. She is the business coordinator and office manager, the glue behind it all. Jane is on vacation today, traveling with her son, and Riley and Mandy also work with us on building out career work and curriculum.
We always start with this. We're in the business of strategy, so we role model what we want our clients to have. and who we serve and what we do. I actually would rather start here and then go back. I always say it's better to start with purpose than your what, as you guys know from Simon Sinek. But our purpose every day, we just were with a client this morning, is to help people stretch and enjoy it. So today we bring in leaders and experts like Spencer. We had the fire chief last time, and we're just really loving helping people kind of think differently and grow, but enjoy that growth. As we tell our clients, you got to have values that you live by. Here's ours, lifetime learner. We think this is fun. We actually enjoy doing this. We value the individual, and we value feedback and engagement. What's different about our model is we spend as much time on the leader and being healthy and teams as we do on strategy. We know strategy is difficult. We know you need it. And you do that when you have healthy teams and high performing or healthy leaders and high performing teams. We do a lot of teaching, which is different. We do a lot of training, and we spend a lot of time on that. And our vision, and as I like most of our clients, and we're getting all of our clients to have a measurable vision, is scaling. We're still figuring this one out with 1 million stretch leaders. But when we work with a client, we want these to be front and center in everything that they do. Then you get to what we do and who we serve. Is growth-oriented companies in most in the region, but we have been traveling. We like leaders who are ready to stretch, and we call them self-aware level 5. They're ready really to grow through developing their team. And we do planning mainly with this integrated approach, and a lot of training, executive coaching, and hiring. And as we tell our clients and people who work with us, you need a measurable reason to believe. We call this brand promise. And most of what we do is based on helping our clients implement. Planning's easy, implementation, and our clients implement better than other in the industry. And that's mainly because of the investment we make up front. Cindy, you want to cover these two and then introduce Spencer?
Yes, love it. The whole purpose of Darcy and me combining what we do is realizing that in the world of, you can create a strategy, but if you don't have the people who are going to be able to implement it, you may not be able to get any forward motion on it. And it's all about being able to understand how leaders behave, how we behave, kind of the new normal, which Spencer is going to roll into, of being able to really think about how am I leading people and how am I interacting with them on a daily basis? So that's where you guys are in for a huge treat with Spencer today. We've got to be able to move forward with meeting goals and making sure we're hitting the profitability. And that doesn't happen because the strategy is on paper. It happens because people know and share values and just the things we just exhibited that, we have as foundational. So it helps us make those decisions. And we know that if you as a leader are harried and can't sit down and focus, because things are moving too fast or they're not being strategic, that you're going to miss out. So we want to make sure people are spending time on their strategy.
And then our model?
Yeah, healthy leaders, winning strategies, and high performance teams. It takes all three to make the wheel go around. And, we have this combination, which we teach people, who are you? How can you lead as a healthy leader? How can we really make sure that your strategy is on point and aspirational and inspirational, and then put together like the science behind how do you do teamwork so you get synergistic engagement. Then you really see a company be able to do what everybody tells us, which is they want to double in 5. And, this really is the framework to be able to be on that opportunity to grow.
Awesome. And I love having some of our friends on, or all of you are friends, people that we know on here that are on this journey. And I appreciate your investment in this hour to learn and to stretch, and please ask questions and engage as best that you can. So you want to move it to Spencer. Spencer, we're going to let you take over working with Gen G. We're going to try to be quiet. I'm going to actually mute myself so I don't talk. I know it's difficult, but thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Darcy and Cindy. Just special thanks to the two of you. It's been fun getting to know you and work with you, and I love what you guys are doing at Stretch Leadership. If you were on this call right now, I might be, actually Anthony probably is, but I might be the second youngest guy in the room. So we're gonna do something fun to start. I want all of you to stand up real quickly. That's right, interactive webinar, take a stand up. That's right, man. How can you work somewhere and just sit all day and be a bunch of stuffs, guys? Come on, creativity doesn't happen overnight. All right, take your hands and put them out here. We're gonna do some stretches, stretch leadership, right? Stretch webinar. Put your hands like this. All right, now bring them up here to the top. I promise you this isn't some Eastern religion yoga thing. And now I want you to squat down. Do not bend your knees too much. There are 24 of you, and it would be a shame if one of you tore your ACL, MCL. All right, now after you squat, bring your hands back to this position, stretched out in front of you. All right, and you're all set. Give yourselves a clap within the reaction bar in the chat or something. It's a pleasure to be with you guys today. A little bit about our organization. So Young Professionals that Work on Purpose. We've been around for 1.5 years now. And we exist because we provide faith-based professional development for young people that is fun, community-driven, and world-changing. We have about 85 young professionals engaged with us. Our primary service offering is we do roundtable groups, monthly roundtable groups, and so all of our development happens within those monthly groups. So we have 7 groups, about 85 members, and culturally, we love to stretch at the beginning of meetings. I don't know if you're like me, but your 2 to 4 o'clock window is probably your most unproductive hours of the day. And so it's right after lunch. But sometimes it's just good to stand up and stretch a little bit. So young professionals that work on purpose, faith-based professional development through a roundtable experience called Collaboratories. My goal for you today is to walk away understanding who Gen Z is and what they actually want. So who Gen Z is and what they actually want. My goal for you, actually, let me just make a quick note of this. For those of you who work at home, you have pets, kids, all kinds of distractions in the background. My distraction is a 1.5-year-old golden doodle named Otis. And so you might see like a shark fin of a tail pan back and forth at the bottom of the screen a bit. We'll roll with it. Anyways, so my goal for you is to walk away knowing who Gen Z is and what actually matters to them. And so I'm going to do that by walking you through their 3 biggest values, which are safety, purpose, and connection. Say this to yourself. You don't have to say it out loud. Safety, purpose, connection. Attached to each value, we'll talk about the world that young people grew up in, as well as some trends that I see, and then some problems that young professionals are running into with their jobs. So before we even hit that though, let's talk about just some practical information related to young people. Let's go to the next slide here. Gen Z is anybody born between the years 1996 and 2010. There is no solidified, by the way, date of when the generation start. We frankly made it up. A lot of experts have every different expert has a different opinion on it. We get ours from the Center of Generational Kinetics. In fact, they are my go-to source for any kind of research on young professionals and young people. But anybody between 96 to 2010, so that would be young people that are 12 to 26 years of age. You probably have a Gen Zer in your household, a few of you do. And so hopefully that this presentation will provide some insight into kind of how your son or daughter works. So all right, so value number 1 is safety. The first thing that young people value is safety. Let's talk about the world they grew up in. 4 big things I want to draw your attention to. So 9/11, Great Recession, school shootings, pandemic. I remember when I was but a wee 7-year-old kid, wasn't even in preschool at the time, actually. I remember my sister getting sent home early from kindergarten because the World Trade Center had just been attacked, right? And I remember my sister coming home, and my mom had Corinne and I go upstairs while she wept over the TV. I'll never forget just hearing her cry because it's the first time our country had ever been attacked inside our own soil. I remember my dad was a business owner. I remember him coming home from work early. If any of you are business owners or decision makers, you know that that is no small thing. And so I remember there just being complete turmoil and panic right when that happened. And then you fast forward 6 years later, and a recession hits, and we watched our older siblings, right? For me, it's my brother. We watched him go to OSU and graduate from college and get this amazing degree in engineering and whatever it is, right? And leave the university and can't find a job. He did amass $50,000 of school debt, right? But no job to pay that back. So what did he do? He moved back home with their family, right? Because where else did he have to go to? Then you fast forward to, or I'm sorry, the same year the recession hits, the first iPhone is created. And it's the first time ever that information is quite literally at your fingertips, right? Where you can absorb and consume any piece of information that you wanted to. And all of a sudden, terrible events, world events that are happening on TV, all of a sudden you can consume it, and you're seeing it every single hour of every single day through social media. In fact, interesting statistic for you is that the American Psychological Association figured out that 3 in every 4 young people experience fear of a school shooting on a regular basis. Wow. Then you fast forward to just a couple of years ago, pandemic hits. And if you're a freshman in high school or college, or a senior in high school or college, that year of your life is totally stripped away from you, and you're forced to be thrusted into online learning, and it's weird, it's awkward, it's exhausting, right? And this is the world that young people grew up in, though, friends. The trend that's important for you to see here is fear. A lot of fear in young professionals. They were conditioned and trained, and they grew up in this world of instability, if you would. And so what would that lead them to think, or from a trend standpoint? They would be risk adverse, right? They would be risk adverse. When it comes to career, young people value 2 big things. For my HR people, write these down. Number 1, they value employers that give high salaries. Great answer, right? High salaries. And then number 2, health insurance. Those speak to what? They speak to stability, because triple digit, that'd be an issue, right? 6-digit salaries, right? And health insurance and PTO and benefits, these speak to stability and safety, right? 61% of Zers believe in skill-based education, trade school, nursing, STEM programs. These make sense to them. Why? Because the floor of pay is higher in these careers, fresh out of college or fresh out of your training. You can walk out of university as a nurse and make $60,000 to $70,000 a year starting, especially if you work nights at a hospital, right? But then if you were to graduate with a traditional business degree, sales, marketing, right, you name it, something, a traditional business role, the floor of pay is significantly lower. That massively affects how young people assess value. Another interesting fact for you, Pew Research published an article 2 years ago where it learned that 52% of young adults are still living with their parents. That was anybody between the ages of 22 and 29. So 22 to 29-year-olds, almost 1 in every 2 of them was still living with their parents. Why? Because young people value stability. They're risk adverse. They don't like taking risks, right? Because they want safety. And so that being said, one of the biggest problems that we see in my generation is a distrust in people of power. Young people struggle with trusting people in positions of power. The Center for Generational Kinetics actually cites that 66% of Gen Z people of color feel that they cannot trust police officers. 74% of all young people feel they cannot trust elected officials. And 76% of all young people feel that the economy is heading in the wrong direction. This is a generation where our natural disposition is to think less of people in positions of power. You have to win the trust of your young employees. You have to win the trust of the young people in your life. Look at literature. Here's an interesting point for you guys. This isn't even in the script, but it's free for you. Look at literature, right? Think about popular novel series from the 2000s or the 2000 teens or whatever you want to call it. Harry Potter, Divergent, right? Hunger Games is another one. All of these series, they depict people in positions of power, primarily older white people, right? Shafting the younger generation who are the heroes in the story and have to make up for it. This is not an accident. This is reflective, I think, of how a lot of young people are conditioned to see the world as we can't trust people that have been given the platform. And so am I saying that people like me or Anthony, that we just naturally hate older, seasoned leaders? Absolutely not. Do not hear me walk away and tell you that we hate old people. My goodness, that'd be a terrible presentation. In fact, there is nothing more influential to a young person than an older person that they can trust. Gallup argues that young people want 4 big things from their employers: someone who cares about them, someone who has good morals, someone who is transparent, and someone who is concerned about the well-being of the world. Young people value safety. The second thing they value is purpose. Young professionals, young adults, we value purpose. This is a generation, we grew up in an age of social revolution. If you could hit the next slide there, Darcy. We grew up in an age of social revolution. The LGBTQ plus movement has arisen. In fact, 74% of Zers in America reportedly support the community. The demand for social justice has risen to the forefront. We had our first African-American president, Barack Obama. The push to save the environment has reached an all-time high. 3 in every 4 Zers cite saving the environment as a top societal concern. Young people grow up in a world of empowerment. You can do anything, be anything, say anything. And if somebody disagrees with you, it might be okay because you're just different from one another. This would explain why we see such a trend of our second trend of ungarnered ambition. This is a really interesting one. Ungarnered ambition. This is perhaps the most creative and entrepreneurial generation that we've ever seen. 52% of Zers cite that they want to start their own company one day. In fact, some studies actually cite that as many as 64% of Gen Zers want to be business owners one day. There was a quick story for you. There's a company that I consult with. They're in Columbus. I can't say their name for legal purposes. They've got a staff of about 50 employees, pretty large nonprofit organization. And they have a team of about 8 really talented young professionals. And but there's one of these young people, you probably have one yourself. One of these young people, she is super arrogant to the max. And they were having an all call, their quarterly huddle, right? All staff gathering. And the CEO, God bless this man, the CEO's casting vision, right? Talking about big picture, right? Vision 2022. And right in the middle of this presentation, God love her, this girl raises her hand and says, I would like for us to talk more about how our company values are connecting to our everyday lives and work. And the entire room went totally dead silent. And what's funny is she honestly asked a good question, I think. She just asked it in a totally inappropriate and wrong way. But it speaks to this idea of ambition and I know how to change the world and I know what needs to happen. And so young people are entrepreneurial by nature, I'd say. Think about their interests: streaming video games online, social media influencers, becoming online business owners. This is the outcome, right, of that trend. Think about, for those of you who have young boys, oh my, Fortnite, like I was a youth pastor about 5 years ago, so I lived through this, right? Think about all the young boys and girls too that, right, for Christmas asked for all the streaming equipment, the mics, the video, all this stuff, right? So they could stream and play Fortnite and other video games online. Young people value safety, yes, but they also value purpose.
The one
They're highly ambitious.
One thing I'll add in here, Spencer, is the trend, and I know Cindy and I have talked about it, within the pandemic of freelancers, of just saying, I could do it on my own, I'll do it on my own terms, and I will be okay. And it's interesting Because there's a little bit of that security and ambition working a little bit against that. But if they're living at home, they're risk averse because they have that part paid for. But it is interesting. I love that connection. And we see this ambition as a desire too. So that's awesome.
Yeah, there are advantages to it, and there are also significant disadvantages to it. One of the biggest struggles that we see in our organization with our young people, a lot of our members are 24 to 28. It's our most our range. We see a massive problem and struggle with personal identity. This is, I would say, the result of a totally post-Christian generation. Here's what that means. About 1700 years ago, Constantine made Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire, which made Christianity the official religion of the Western world, which means all of the governing systems and values and norms and social principles were influenced by Christianity. But in the past 20 to 30 years, it depends on who you ask, a lot of historians or church historians have argued that we've transitioned into a totally post-Christian world, where ethical and moral norms that were once normal are not at all. We see this in church records. James Emery White records that 50% of Gen Z identifies as a religious nun. Then 78% of those 50% reportedly believe in some kind of higher power, but then only 41% of that 50% attend weekly worship services, and then only 8% of that 41% see religious figures as role models. We are in a totally post-Christian world where basic values and principles that used to be the norm are no longer the norm for young people. And this is precisely why I would say we need so much guidance from seasoned older leaders. We need people to invest into us. We need people that care about us. In fact, if you could write this down, every young person wants somebody who sees them, notices them, and cares about them. Every young person wants someone who sees them, notices them, cares about them. Which takes us to our third final value, which is connection. Young people value connection. Let's look at the world we grew up in again. We grew up in the technological revolution. First smartphone, first iPhone was created, I think, in 2007. Fast forward 15 years, and now 45% of young people by the ages of 15 have iPhones. That's absurd, guys. And I'm on the higher end of Gen Z. I'm 25 here, right? I'm on the higher end of Gen Z here, but I remember having a flip phone with minutes, right? Like that is not like, that was the world that I grew up in here. I also remember home phones and pagers and faxing machines, right? But I digress. So think about the evolution and emergence of social media. It was, for my millennials on here, it was MySpace, right? And then it was Facebook and YouTube, then Instagram, Snapchat, Vine, Twitter, TikTok. I don't know, whatever else you want to throw into there. There's so many different media platforms. But technology has also affected the way we've been educated. 81% of schools issued mobile devices such as laptops or tablets during the pandemic. And I would argue the 19% that did not, it's because the state isn't giving them enough funding to actually support their students with those devices. Interesting fact for you. Maybe it's not interesting. Maybe this is just sad. In 2019, Sparks and Honey determined that 51% of Zers do academic research through social media. 51% of Zers do academic research through social media. I didn't believe that when I first read that, to be frank with you. I actually didn't even have it in my presentations because I just thought it was like bad research. But then I was with a school about a month ago, and one of the girls, I was observing this class, and one of the boys raised his hand, and he shared that they were talking about the whole fiasco with Ukraine and Russia, and they were supposed to go home and do research on it. And he came back with and shared Twitter research. He even shared the article, like where he found it on Twitter, and he didn't know a thing about the publisher. And so it's a real thing, guys. It's a real thing. Because of this technologically advanced world, if you will, that we grew up in, it shows why young people are craving intimacy. Man, this is the most significant point in the whole presentation. Young people are building online friendships like never before. 57% of people my age have made friends through online gaming platforms or through social media. They're also craving connection with employers. 72% of Zers want in-person communication with their supervisor. Then 83% want a supervisor that cares about their life. In fact, this is a free thing for you. I share this with the companies I work with. There is a lie out there that young people want 100% remote work. That could not be further from the truth. I would say every young person wants hybrid work. Young people don't want remote work. They want flexible work is the key. So I encourage employers and HR directors to do hybrid environments if they can. So have some in-person days, some home days. Yes, anyways. So young people want in-person communication with their supervisors and a supervisor that cares about them. This is a fun one, but there are 3 big places you find a partner for Gen Z, and that would be bars, church, and dating apps. And maybe 4th, if you want to add, it would be work, right? Maybe work sometimes. But all of these is evidence of this world that we grew up in. Young people crave friendship, intimacy, connection just as much as you did when you were in your 20s. I promise you that. And so in the age of technology and of the intimacy crave, it only makes sense that my generation, we would struggle with loneliness. Guys, my generation is lonely. At YP, our language for this is we call it the loneliness epidemic. In fact, this is our origin story, is we exist because of just this crazy shift from when a young person leaves high school or college and goes to work full time. It's this huge lonely jump for them. And so during the pandemic, 7 of 10 Zers shared that they struggled with anxiety and depression. The CDC shared, this is BC before COVID, the CDC shared that the suicide rate climbed by 57% in 10-year-olds from 2007 to 2017. This is also the most medicated generation we've ever seen. There are higher demands for counselors and therapists than ever before. Pornography is as popular as ever. Get this, this is wild. In 2017, there were twice as many visits to one pornographic site as there were people on the earth. I'm gonna repeat that, that's a really crazy one. In 2017, there were twice as many visits to a pornographic site, as there were people on earth. Young people are lonely and they value connection like never before. And so let's recap here. Number 1, young people value safety. They grew up in a world of instability, so they're risk adverse. They naturally struggle with distrusting authorities, but they want purpose, right? They grew up in an age of empowerment and social revolution. And so they want to do something to change the world. The key is they need somebody to help them do it, to come alongside of them. And so lastly, they value connection. In a world of technological innovation that has us digitally connected more than ever, we are more emotionally disconnected than we've ever been. And so thank you for having me present and share about this topic. That's all I got for you. Let's transition into some Q&A or whatever you guys have next.
Boy, I was giving a lot of awesome and like thumbs up and everything. That was so great. I was nervous about slide transitioning because I was taking so many notes. So thank you. Cindy, what's your reactions? And then we'll see if people have questions. And then I know people can raise their hand or they can just jump in. You know, we don't mind jumping inners. Cindy, what are some of your reactions to this? And then maybe people can think of some questions. I have a ton, so.
Yeah, first of all, thank you. So well done. And I think all of us are probably kind of doing okay, I got to process this for a minute. And what is, where do we go from here? Because, as we think about just the exposure to wanting to help, it feels like a great leap to Spencer and I were talking before, and I'm like a year within his mom's age. And, it's like, how do you build that gap and how do you have those conversations that really bring the value of the new way of work into our workplaces and into our own personal commitment to this generation. And, I think Spencer, the knowledge part of that is kind of overwhelming. I wonder for kind of our audience here, our friends, whatever, that are hearing this message, how do we bridge that gap? How do we reach out, engage with Gen Zers in a way that doesn't make me feel like somebody's mom?
Or even anyone else that's young on the thing. Anthony, I don't know who you are, but you look young. Are you?
Hi everyone. Yeah, I'm actually part of YP AWOP. I'm actually one of the I joined last year, and everything that Spencer was talking about hits really close to home for me, because one of the reasons I joined AWOP is because I was going through an incredibly tough, lonely time period where I felt like I didn't have connections, where I felt like my career wasn't caring about me to a degree. I was in a really dark place. So everything he talked about, I'm like, ooh, that's me right there.
That's awesome. So maybe the group can share, I thought it might be interesting to hear what they think that they're doing to connect. Like, what are some things people are doing, some best practices that we're seeing out there for folks? Does anybody want to share some learning or some thoughts on these? Oh, Will, thank you. Gosh, I was hoping you would talk.
All right. Well, I hope you don't regret that. So,
Oh gosh,
one,
I have the mute button. Hold on.
that's fair. No, so one thing we've done with my team, and I learned this from someone else, but one thing we've done is talk a little bit about psychological safety and encourage them to kind of think about what type of intrinsic drives outside of work, right? Just what makes them content at work, outside of work, that we can bring into their job. So not that I can, always fit those desires into their daily roles, but given the opportunity, now that I know what they are, I do try to be a little more meaningful and pick out opportunities to give them that connection. And I think, not that it was my intent, but I think that that connection and, just building trust happens as they see me execute, not just asking for information, but using the information for their benefit.
That's awesome. And I was just talking to a company this morning, and I mean, you guys all know this, but when I've been doing strategy for 20 years, 10 years ago, not many people were talking about purpose-driven companies. I mean, they were out there. They were out there. Simon Sinek was wearing his jeans talking about Apple, but small to mid-sized companies weren't leading with purpose. I mean, that is really over the last 5+ years and wildly important now for me. My clients are really thinking about it. They're engaging their organization in it. Their employees, especially the younger ones, that's what they're fighting for, is this purpose. And it really is a good conversation to have. And I can list off my clients, and those that lead with purpose aren't having a hard time hiring. I'll tell you that. That's a big thing. And I do think that's just an interesting shift just in the strategy world, for sure. Transparency would be another thing, Spencer. It caught my attention because I still have know of some clients that aren't willing to share, when it comes to some information. And I do think you brought it up and it just caught me. I don't think that sometimes I think leaders are scared to share because they're afraid that people think it's better than it is. And most of the time it's worse than it is. So I say share, but there is a fear of being too transparent. I mean, and that is something I think the one from generation to the next, that is to me a big difference, like how transparent you are. I don't know if anyone would want to talk about that, but that's an interesting one for me.
Yeah, Anthony, as I come back over to you and what you were sharing, I see where AWAP was a good connection point for you. What else, having come from that experience, and I understand how powerful that is, what has helped you get your feet back on the ground?
Yeah, so a little background. I had moved to Cincinnati from New Jersey in the December 2020. So I moved to a new city in a new state in the middle of winter during the pandemic, and I didn't know anybody. And so that's kind of like where I was coming from. I had, brand new job, didn't know a single person, and I had no community. I had no one to kind of talk to about what I was going through. Um, and I came across YP kind of by accident. I ran into a fellow who I kind of just opened up to him about. I was very transparent with him. I'm a very transparent person. So I met this guy. We just have a little connection, started talking about faith. And I was like, yeah, I'm be honest, I'm going through a really tough time right now. I'm looking for people to be able to connect with. And he kind of led me to Spencer. And through that, one thing I've made great connections, and it's been easier for me to be transparent with myself and what I'm going through, and not trying to bottle things up as much. Kind of like when going off the transparency thing with my current employer, one thing I really appreciate is my boss right now, he's a Christian, he's a believer. And so once a week we get together and have like a little prayer meeting, and he talks about his struggles as a believer in leading a company. And that type of transparency gives me a lot of confidence knowing, okay, this is a real person I'm working with. This is someone who is going through similar struggles that I am. And it feels really nice when you can trust who you're speaking to and who you're connecting with. I feel like, kind of like Spencer said, there's so much distrust in higher ups just because we don't know what their agenda is. We don't know where their goals lie. And so it's incredibly important.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
Wonderful.
good.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other comments from this astound group of leaders? Anyone else want to share? Or Spencer, did you have something to add?
Yes, a word of wisdom for directors, C-levels. A word of wisdom is that, so I'm a business owner too, and I also have a full-time job I just took. So I understand the value of time really well. And I know that you have none of that already. Your calendar's booked. You've got tons of thousands of things going on. And I would encourage you, one small practical thing you can do to engage your young people and your employees is, if you are unable to make yourself available, at least be visible. So if you are unable to make yourself available, at least be visible. I cannot tell you in our groups the number of times our people have pointed out how much it meant to them to just see their director or the person who hired them just stop by their desk or hop on their Zoom call or hop in their Slack meeting just to say, hey, wanted to say hi. And so availability, if you can make yourself available, absolutely. But visibility is certainly a great thing to do to engage your people.
Love it.
That's awesome. Our speaker, for those that were on it, I mean, one of my biggest takeaway was kitchen table leader, for her that comment. But it wasn't this check-in, right? Or this mentor. It was a firehouse. He eats dinner. He eats with them because that's the best time for him to connect. And we tell our leaders, I mean, that's part of what we're talking about. How I love that. How visible are you? And how do people see you out there? Because personalities can, you could say, well, it's not like me to go up and talk to a lot of people, but well, you don't have to, but you can go be with people, right? And so I love that's really a powerful reminder for us as humans, right? To be visible. I love that. That's great. Anything else from the group? The transparency was one for me. Anything else from the group for questions? I'm allowing my silent pause to see if there's any other questions or comments.
Well, I'm proud of you. I have one for Nancy. Nancy is a mom to 5 boys.
She always
And-
gets nervous when Cindy asks her questions.
You know, she does not like being called on. But I can't help but be thinking about you, Nancy, with all these young men in your world. Anything stood out to you?
Yeah, actually, I was feverishly writing notes because, I mean, they're my children. I know them, but that certainly makes so much sense. You know, I can really see that. I can really see how much growing up with those things happening in their lifetimes uh, affected them. And, you know, I think about some of them want new jobs right now and, you know, thinking of their reasons and how things aren't being met. And it makes complete sense. I wish they were all on it.
It's good to understand. Once we understand, then we can figure out how to problem solve.
Right, right.
And this is taped, so you're welcome to have a copy of it. Thank you, Spencer. I just volunteered your talk to everybody, but
I'm sure
yeah.
he's
Yeah, I think this is just a conversation that requires thought, you know, like even, I mean, you brought up so many things that in terms of integrating it, you know, it's walking away and really, I mean, I would encourage, you know, do we know who our Gen Zers are? Like just to think through like, okay, what is that segment of our people? Have we partnered them with somebody that's a natural mentor for them? And have we been transparent with them about why we're making the decisions that the company is making? And then the other thing that I've seen over and over again, you know, we used to have an expression when I was at Procter & Gamble called butts in seats. And basically it meant until you had, you know, like I started out in sales, which was not glamorous. I mean, I had rural Alabama, Talladega, Sylacauga. I mean, I had rural Alabama and I went in and cleaned grocery store shelves and restocked Tide and Dawn and Cascade with my lovely college degree. But they really, that was a Procter & Gamble way, was to break you down. And, you know, they were like, until you've had butts and seats for a couple of years, you don't really appreciate the sales cycle of Procter, which they've changed completely now because it really didn't work. But you know, this generation doesn't do that. They don't want to do repetitive just to check the box over 2 years. Look at Anthony's face. Anthony is like, preach it. You know, they want to try new things. They want to be on collaborative teams and bring ideas and not just have to punch a clock and repeat work to prove that they've got maturity and age on them. So I challenge all of us to look at where we're utilizing this thought process that is, you know, it's not intended to break the rules. It's just that the rules in their minds are foolish. And I love this generation because I've learned so much about, yeah, why do we do that? Why don't we think about this differently? And of course, my soapbox is always maximizing people. So maximize what you've got, bring them in.
Well, and I think the common element to a lot of the people on here, which I'll give a lot of credit to, is the investment in training that really as a whole, that this group of companies really on this call makes. And I do think that matters. So I think that the data, and Spencer, you and Anthony can maybe share, but having a company who doesn't just show up and be visible, but basically says, we're going to invest in you, we're going to train you, we're going to, you know, help you be better. I gotta imagine that helps with your identity, and it helps knowing that.
Yeah, if I could just add this. So a question I get usually when I do this presentation is related to like the Great Resignation and how do I retain my employees?
Yeah.
And I think that my young response to that question of how do I retain my young people is don't do cheap tricks. And this is going to sound ironic or like an oxymoron. A company, a logical linear leader will say, well, we're losing people, we need to raise salaries. So increase the hiring number, take more risk on the hire. And I would say that's awesome for the person you're hiring. They've hired salary. That's great. But I think that you might not have a money problem. You might have a people problem. I think the number is, there was a study done by Gallup where it determined that I think 79% of Gen Zers, in a study of about 200 young people, 79% of Zers left their company based off of their first day at the organization. And so it might be that you have retention issues, not because you're not paying well. It might just be because they're not positioned to succeed. The expectations aren't clear. Their job is fuzzy. It just might be that you don't need to pay them more. It might actually be that you need to invest in them more. Yes. Yeah.
That's so good. And it was a client yesterday where they basically said that exact same thing. I can't even believe it. People were coming to work. They had hired them. They had paid all this in the acquisition costs, and the person would get there and the computer wouldn't be ready. There'd be no one to greet them. They wouldn't have a training plan. Their role was sort of spelled out, but not as clear. They weren't, their first level manager wasn't really set, and they lost them within a week, within a few months. It was just right there. So this was yesterday, Cindy, with our client. One of their first things in their strategy, is like, we can't afford to, the onboarding is got to be the number one priority right now. Onboarding from the minute. So it can't be, if we hire someone, computers got to be ready, desks got to be ready, training plans got to be close, managers got to know their name. We got to take them to lunch. That used to be givens. I think we got a little lazy. Then we let the pandemic happen. Now we're back. We got to get back to some basics here, people. But that just came up, that base level onboarding. But, first day impressions matter, And it's funny, I think we might have got a little lazy now that I'm thinking about it. But that's good. That's a good reminder for all of us.
Yeah. I know we're coming up on our time here. I'm wondering if anybody has any specific questions for me, or if there's anything any questions for me or anything that I can speak to.
I have one question, and Spencer or Anthony, you could probably give good info. Is there some actionable item, knowing that safety, connection, purpose are what we're after? As a member of Gen Z, what's the action that you see or experience that kind of helps us move the needle and gives you the things that you need?
I got a quick one for you. Don't be cool, be you. Young people can sniff out fakeness and authenticity from a mile away, and so can you, right? Sure. Don't be cool, be you, whoever you are, whatever you're designed to be exactly who you are. Your background says we're in the people business. We just happen to work. I assume that's what the quote is, right? You are in the people business every day, all day, every day, at every organization. And so don't be cool, be you, be who you are. Yes.
Yeah, going off that, there's a big word that's really popular right now. It's called cringe. Not sure if you guys are familiar with it. And so one thing that I know is my generation really hates is stuff that we consider cringe or fake or inauthentic. So that's just a little support for what Spencer is saying. It's just be yourself and make sure, like he said, what I've noticed is when my managers, when my CEO checks in, like, hey, what's been stressing you out lately? Hey, is there anything that that we can do better? Any advice that you have for what you've seen so far? Little things like that really make us feel heard.
Yeah, and to add to that, that's a really great point. And to add to that, to circle back to this visibility versus availability thing, one thing I'll add to that is that a lie that something that's false that's I think believed about young people is that we want helicopter bosses and we want somebody that is going to hold our hand all the way through training, onboarding, into the job. And that might be true for some, but I do not think it's true for most young people. Young people don't need you to parent them. They need you to be available for them. Or I'm sorry, let me change the verbiage. They want you to be accessible. You don't have to helicopter boss your young employee unless they needed to performance wise, frankly. You don't have to helicopter boss them, but if you're accessible, and they know that when they walk into your office, you're not going to tell them I'm too busy for you, or or communicate that to them. If they know that they can access you, that's the key. Yeah, accessibility is huge.
That's great. Any other questions for Spencer? Anthony, I'm gonna have to send you a Starbucks card too. That's what Spencer's getting, so.
Honestly, I'm being entirely honest. I am not entirely sure how I ended up here. I signed up for this like a couple weeks ago. I don't know where I signed up or how I signed up through.
The universe wanted you here, Anthony. You too will get a gift card to Starbucks. I mean,
It
if
was
that's
meant to
good, I don't
be.
know.
You're one
I
of us
love
now.
Starbucks. Yes. I love Starbucks, so I will not say no to that.
I love
Awesome.
it.
Awesome. All right. We are up. We'll be hanging out. I think Spencer put link to more information about organization. Like I said, I'm going to post a few positions that we have that we're looking for young professionals with him. If you have young professionals and they're looking for connections, that's a great organization to check out. So thank you so much for really this amazing amount of information, but distilled in a way that we can take away 3 key thoughts and values that I think we can all react to and we can figure out. So the awareness has been great. Thank you.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Thank you. Awesome job.
Awesome. We're going to hang out. If people need to go ahead. There's links here to more information, and we will be closing this video down, and we'll send out when it's ready if you want to let your leaders watch this.
Yeah.
Which I recommend.
Anthony, where are you